Attention sports teams. Let us introduce you to the best fan engagement tool in the game, .vote. By getting a .vote web address for your team, you can allow fans to engage and interact with big-time decisions. In a single click, not only can fans make their opinions heard, but sports teams get a better understanding of their fans' interests. Keep your fans engaged. Simply visit GoDaddy.com today, type in the desired name of your web address, and let the voting begin.
An NFL draft lottery is coming sooner or later. Is a breakup brewing in Baltimore, and how low can the Jets go? It's all on a new edition of Gordon Damer on Sports. Welcome in. It is a fresh episode of Gordon Damer on Sports, an exclusive NFL episode of Gordon Damer on Sports. 1 week to go in the NFL regular season before, let's be honest, the most wide open playoffs we have ever seen in our lifetimes. Honestly, if I asked you right now, who's winning the Super Bowl? Who are you taking? Who are you picking? Do you have any confidence in any team in the field to run through the gauntlet of the NFL playoffs and win a Super Bowl? The Seahawks and the Patriots are the number one seeds. Confident about either of them? Are you confident either of those teams can even get to a Super Bowl? Because I got to be honest with you, I'm not. So it feels like the most wide open field, which is saying something. Generally, the defending champion would get a little benefit of the doubt, and maybe the Eagles go on a run. Wouldn't shock me that much. But going into the playoffs, am I confident the Eagles are getting back to another Super Bowl with all the issues? Not really. It feels like the most wide open field we have ever seen, which is really saying something. All right, a couple of things before we get into the episode. One, I remind you every episode, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button on whatever platform you're taking the podcast in on. We've seen our numbers start to really grow over the last couple, so that has been a great thing to see, and I thank you for that support. But like the episode, rate the episode, hit a couple of buttons on the episode, but most importantly, hit that subscribe button on whatever platform you're taking the podcast in on. All right, also, last episode, I think I got something wrong, and I like to admit when I get something wrong. We were talking about the Kansas City Chiefs' new stadium deal, and how they're going to be moving across state lines to the state of Kansas from Missouri. And at first, it seemed like, man, what a tough break for the people of Missouri to be losing their team. Now, we're not exactly sure where the new stadium is going to be built. They haven't decided that yet. But it seems like it's going to be pretty close to state lines. So if you're from Missouri, you might have to drive an extra hour to a new stadium. But if that's the case, fans are just simply driving a little further away to get to a brand new stadium that's got all the bells and whistles. It's going to be a dome stadium, so it'll be indoors and it'll be climate controlled, so you're not sitting out there in the freezing cold weather, which is nice as well. And the most important thing is, you're not paying for it with your tax money. That's the people of Kansas. The people of Kansas should be ticked off that $1.8 billion is being handed to one of the richest families in America, the Hunt family. And look, if you're a Chiefs fan, maybe you have some attachment to Arrowhead Stadium. But look, it could be a whole lot worse if just the bad part of this is, hey, you got to drive an extra hour, but at least your taxpayer, your taxes are not going to pay for a football stadium. I don't know. That feels like a pretty good deal to me. I think I would prefer that to having it in the same place and paying my taxes to a football stadium when the owners do not need my tax money. All right, let's get into something happened in Week 17 in the NFL, and I think it's going to continue to come up in conversations, not just this year, but in the future. And it is this. The NFL is going to adopt a draft lottery at some point. It's not going to happen this week. It's not going to happen this year. But within the next decade, it is almost certainly going to happen because the current system where the worst record equals the best pick, it's being exploited like it's been exploited in other sports. And it has led to some very questionable decisions. And with a league that wants to convince you in this online gambling world that integrity is king, I think it's kind of vital to remove any incentive for teams to sit players who could clearly play just to improve their chances of losing and improve their chances of getting a higher pick. And make no mistake, that's what the Raiders did last week by benching Max Crosby and benching Brock Bowers. They made it clear they were intentionally losing that game to the New York Giants. And I'm not blaming the Raiders for doing it. That was the smart thing to do. But that is going to continue to happen, not just this year, not just next year. It's going to happen more and more because this is a league where the quarterback is obviously king. Rookie contracts are now gold mines, and the math overwhelmingly favors losing at the right time over winning meaningless games in December when your season is long over. So this isn't about integrity or building culture, all the things that people will bring up all the time. This is about incentives. Incentives work. They work for people, and they certainly work for NFL franchises. So I think you have to focus on the quarterback, because I think the quarterback now has broken the draft. You know, the NFL has always been a quarterback-driven league, but over the last decade and a half, 2 decades, it's only been more so. The NFL quarterback is now the superstar. And today, there's no more valuable asset in professional sports than having a star quarterback on a rookie contract. Not just a good quarterback who might develop into something over time, but if you have a franchise quarterback that you know playing elite football right away while counting basically pennies on the salary cap, that is an absolute goldmine to your franchise. And that combination, that is how dynasties are now built. The Patrick Mahomes Kansas City Chiefs, him walking in on that rookie deal and winning right away. Joe Burrow in Cincinnati. What you're seeing with Drake May now in New England. If you're able to land those guys, especially when they're at the top of the draft. Now, Mahomes maybe wasn't one of the top 5 picks, but Burrow was the number 1 pick. Drake May was number 3. You hit on that guy, and the entire economics of your franchises changes overnight. Suddenly, you're not paying your quarterback, so you can take that money that would ordinarily go to him and fill out all the other spots on your team, on your roster. And the key part is the current draft system actively encourages teams to lose more games to increase their chances of landing that quarterback, especially when your season's been over for a lot of teams since October, maybe even since September. And that's not a moral judgment. That's just simply math. And I know what people will say all the time when the tanking conversation comes up, but it only comes up in the NFL, is what they'll say is, well, look, these are professionals, Gordon. You can't have professionals tanking. You can't convince a professional athlete that they don't want to win the game. These are professionals. They are professional players. They're professional coaches. Nobody would ever intentionally lose games on purpose. Well, I would say the only problem with that is, are NBA players professional? I mean, I think they're professional, right? The NBA is professional players. The NHL, Major League Baseball, they're professional players, and yet tanking comes up in those sports as well. It's come up for a while. Now, the NBA is most associated with it, but tanking exists in all 3 of those leagues, and lo and behold, all 3 of those leagues have a draft lottery. And really, tanking is not necessarily about the players on the field in that moment. It's about organizations making decisions that reduce the chance of winning. And that might sound a little simplistic, but yes, obviously, I'm not telling the starting linebacker, don't tackle anybody in the 3rd quarter. I'm not telling the receiver to drop a pass on a key drive in the 4th. But instead, it's pretty simple how this goes. I mean, how you do this. You start a quarterback who can't play. I don't know what the odds are. That's a major part of the soup. You do that, and you're already on your way. Maybe you sit veterans who have some minor injuries like the Raiders did this past week. Maybe you avoid upgrading any obvious roster holes. Maybe you start talking about how you're evaluating things for next season, like all of a sudden December is this lab where you're testing things out. That's how teams go about it. And we've seen this for a while, and it's only going to continue to happen because in the NFL, starting a bad quarterback alone, that goes a long way to guaranteeing a high draft pick. You don't need a conspiracy. You don't need a team meeting. You just need some incompetence at the most important positions. And in the NFL, there's no more important position than at quarterback. And that's already happening. I mean, take a look at what the New York Jets are doing. Now, they weren't tanking the entire year, but starting Brady Cook, that goes a long way to make sure you're not going to win any games. And right now, at least the tanking conversation is happening in December. Nobody's tanking for an entire season as of yet. But the important words there are as of yet. This is late season manipulation. So by the final weekend of a season, or last couple of weeks, the last month of a season, any team with a chance at a top 5 pick has already had a lousy team for 4 months. There is no moral victories in winning one more meaningless game if it drops you down the draft board and you lose the number 1 pick. And we've already seen that. So the Raiders sitting key players to lose a game against a lousy Giants team, basically locking up the number 1 pick. The Giants, they cost their organization by winning that game. If they had the number 1 pick and a quarterback in place, they could have added possibly 2 more number 1 picks by just trading that 1 pick away. That is organizational malpractice for a Giants team that had not won a game since October. Now all of a sudden they're building a culture by beating the last place Vegas Raiders, the worst team in the NFL. It makes no sense. And look, this is going to continue to happen because the value of the quarterback will only continue to rise. And I think that the conversation with tanking has not really hit the NFL as of yet fully, but at some point, one of these organizations is going to figure it out, where tanking right now in the NFL makes more sense than in any other sport. The reward structure in the NFL is far more powerful, starting with the obvious. There is no draft lottery. So if you're terrible for a season, you are getting the number 1 pick. No ifs, ands, or buts. And in the NFL, if you hit on a superstar, especially at the quarterback position, but not just a quarterback, that superstar is going to be your player probably for his entire career. Now, sometimes things happen, but if you hit on one of the 4 main positions, quarterback, left tackle, pass rusher, shutdown corner, the vast majority of star quarterbacks in the NFL play their entire careers, the productive part of their careers, for one team. Maybe they change late in their career. That doesn't happen. Like, when was the last time an NFL LeBron James or Kevin Durant changed teams because he felt like it? It basically doesn't happen. The structure is in place where if you land that pick and you hit on a superstar, you've got him for his career. And high draft picks in the NFL have way more value than in the NBA. The NBA draft curve is flatter, right? There were 7 rounds. There were only 2 rounds. Are there 2 rounds in the NBA? I think there's only 2 rounds in the NBA. So you almost have 4 times as many rounds. Second and third pick matter. 4th round picks matter in the NFL. Trading down can reshape your roster. In the NFL, tanking doesn't just buy you a player. It buys you options. It buys you ammunition. Because in the NFL, you have to draft well to be a good team. And what's really changed this conversation is the rookie wage scale. Like, the old NFL, they didn't need a draft lottery as much because before the rookie wage scale, top picks were expensive. And if you missed on one, it could cripple you financially. There was real downside risk. Now with the rookie wage scale, that's gone. Rookie contracts are cheap. They're predictable. They're controlled. You know exactly what you're going to be paid. And the upside of hitting on a quarterback far outweighs the downside of missing, especially when missing. What is that going to do? Well, it's going to give you another high pick the following year. So the idea of you should be taking quarterbacks every single year based on, that makes a lot of sense. The math has changed. Even if the league really hasn't caught up to it yet, maybe even if the franchises haven't caught up to it yet, and the fan bases might not have caught up to it yet, but the NFL draft, the irony of all this is the NFL was the first league to understand the power of the draft. The very first NFL draft was in 1936, and they were the first league to use the reverse order of finish, right? So if you finished worst, you picked first. And at a time, that was like this revolutionary thing. It was a brilliant solution to figuring out how to balance talent and help teams that were bad and not costing teams that were good, that they didn't end up losing players as a result. So that idea became so ingrained in basically every sport that we stopped questioning it. Right? Every team, every league now has a draft of some kind. But here's the question I don't think anybody asked. If the NFL already had a draft lottery, would anybody be seriously arguing against it? Like, the NBA draft lottery has been in place for 40 years now. And while there are tweaks and people want to see things changed here and there about the odds, and they certainly have changed things, and it's not improved tanking in any way because the incentives just weigh it so heavily. But like the NBA, there's nobody arguing that the NBA should get rid of the draft lottery, right? And the NBA has changed the rules along the way. And for the NFL to build a winning team, there's nothing more important than the draft. Like, if you don't draft well, you've got no chance. Like in the NBA, you might not draft well, but you might hit on a free agent, a superstar who comes to your team and kind of saves you from yourself. In Major League Baseball, the draft is not as important because it takes years generally to find out if these guys are any good. So in the NFL, you have to draft well. Otherwise, you are screwed. The draft has more value in the NFL than anything else. So I've been a big believer that if you want to fix tanking, a lottery might not be the thing because the incentives just outweigh it. And I think that this is where people get tripped up a lot. Lotteries don't eliminate tanking. All right. People don't stop trying to benefit themselves just because the odds change some. But teams, like people, respond to incentives. So if what a weighted lottery would do, I think, in the NFL, would reduce the benefit of losing one more game, sitting your guys in week 17 of the season. That incentive would disappear if you knew the only thing you're really changing is the percentages of your chance of landing the number one pick. So it wouldn't be worth it sitting players and angering your fan base just based on, whatever the ping pong balls would be. I would not think so. And I think that should be the goal. But also, let's talk about what the NFL really is all about. Like the NFL, at the end of the day, the NFL is driven by two things. I think that they are driven by the thrill of competition. It is an amazing product that we all cannot consume enough about. But the NFL as well likes to build wealth, right? Like it is basically a license to print money. And the current system, it doesn't really serve either of those things all that well. So imagine an off season where you have an NFL draft lottery in prime time, in the middle of the off season, televised, weeks of buildup, odds breakdowns. I mean, the excitement for fan bases who have had nothing to be excited about over the course of an NFL season, fan bases would eat it up. The NFL draft already exponentially outdraws the interest of any other draft in any other league. And just for context of how big a draft lottery would be, the 2017 draft lottery, that was the year that Zion came out. So that was a very highly anticipated lottery. That drew 4.5 million viewers. The actual NBA draft that year drew 3.5 million viewers. So the draft lottery outdrew the actual draft. You don't think that could happen with the NFL? And the NFL draft numbers dwarf those numbers. So you don't think that one of these streaming networks Netflix, Amazon, YouTube, you don't think that they want to drop a big bag of money to keep the NFL very happy, and that fan bases would? This is a revenue stream that is just sitting there waiting for the NFL. You're telling me the NFL is not going to pick up that bag of money? Has there ever been a bag of money that the NFL has not picked up? You're telling me that there are things that the NFL won't do to grow the financial pie? Please. This is one of the easy ones. They'll do anything to grow the financial pie. So this is one of the easy ones that I think fans would actually get behind once they got the newness of it out of the way. So look, as long as the draft exists, leagues have an obligation to kind of protect the integrity of the regular season, right? And rewarding teams for being terrible for one or a couple of extra weeks basically does the opposite. What the Raiders did, which was the smart thing, is going to continue to happen, but it's not in the best interest of the league to be having those conversations. Losing strategically is smart, and winning meaningless games is dumb. But is that really what the NFL wants to endorse long time? And I'm sure, the conversations have been had. People have asked Roger Goodell about it, and he has said that the draft lottery is not something they're working on, that they have no interest in the draft lottery right now. And that's what you say, right up until the point where you announce it. So maybe it'll be the next CBA whenever it does. The NFL takes tremendous pride in not being like other leagues. So maybe this is the type of thing where they'll continue to deny it, and they'll come up with their own system, which it won't be a draft lottery. It'll be something else that they call it. But that's what it will be at the end of the day. The NFL is always about growing and giving fans even more. Fans can't get enough. We are addicted to football like no sport maybe in the history of the known universe. And look, if you want it, we talk about incentives. At the end of the day, giving fans an incentive to pay attention to your league in the offseason with a draft lottery would certainly do that. And it would also benefit the league by improving the incentives for teams to continue to play players who are obviously very capable of still playing. And you would avoid the conversations that are surrounding the Raiders right now. And look, the only reason why these yells and screams are not louder is because Raider fans are happy. Giant fans are depressed their team won that stupid game. So that is a conversation that pops up every once in a while. And who knows, maybe after week 18, It will pop up again, but the NFL draft lottery is a conversation that is not going to go away because it just makes too much sense. All right, now that we got the tanking conversation out of the way, let's talk about the New York Jets. How do the New York Jets continue to make content with being as inept as an NFL franchise has ever been? And what the conversation surrounding their head coach is right now, I will say this to Woody Johnson if he is one of our listeners to the podcast. Woody, you can do it now or you can do it later. But make no mistake, Aaron Glenn is not going to be the head coach that turns around the New York Jets. And I don't blame the Jets. I don't blame Woody for hiring Aaron Glenn. I thought it was the right decision at the time. I had very modest expectations. I wanted to see how this first year would go. And oh my God, this year has been a disaster. Every time you think it can't get any worse than this, somehow the Jets find a way. On Sunday, if you are a Jet fan that showed up to that game on Sunday against the Patriots, you deserve to go visit the Blue Medical Tent to make sure that you were okay. It was so much worse than you could think it was going to be. So the Jets, they can do it now or they can do it later. But Aaron Glenn, even in 1 year, it's obvious he has failed to meet even the most modest expectations as a first-year head coach for the New York Jets. And think about this. When this season ends, after the game in Buffalo, which at this point they might lose 500-0, Glenn is going to earn the distinction nobody wants. He is going to be the worst first-year head coach in Jets history. Think about that. For a franchise that's not exactly littered with success, he is worse than Robert Saleh. He is worse than Adam Gase. He is worse than Todd Bowles. He is worse than Mangini. He's worse than Herm Edwards. The only name that you could even think to compare him to is Rich Kotite. And if you are comparing any head coach to Rich Kotite, that guy's already lost. You know how bad it is. And that's what you'd have to compare him to. Rich Kotite won 3 games in his first season. Aaron Glenn won 3 games in his first season, even despite having an extra game. Back then, the Jets were the worst offense in football. Somehow this year, they say the numbers tell you that they're not the worst offense in football. I don't see how that's even humanly possible. I watch the games, the eye test, the smell test, any kind of test would tell you the Jets are dreadful. And, look, sometimes first-year head coaches, there's a honeymoon period, right? There are things you got to figure out along the way, especially if you're a first-time head coach. The idea that the Jets have 0 pieces. Aaron Glenn has had the most modest expectations and has not found improvement anywhere. And the offense, this did not happen by accident. This was a choice. Justin Fields was targeted by Aaron Glenn. Aaron Glenn was hired. He had a hand in hiring Darren Muji. And they went out immediately and targeted Justin Fields. So this is not a holdover. This was not evaluating the roster. They wanted Justin Fields. And what followed was the worst version of Justin Fields we have ever seen. Even by Jet standards, he was unplayable. And the stat that told me everything you need to know about this Jets offense, somehow Garrett Wilson is still the Jets' leading receiver. He hasn't played in 2 months, and he's still the leading receiver. Your leading receiver has under 400 yards? That is organizational failure at the highest level. The offense is abysmal, and that is on Aaron Glenn, even though he's a defensive coach. And somehow, as bad as the offense is, the defense is even worse. It defies all logic. They're 31st in points. They're 30th in yards. They're going to be the worst in the history. I couldn't imagine. Sunday, that game against the Patriots, I've seen Harlem Globetrotter games that have been more competitive. I was waiting for the Patriots to break out the bucket of confetti gag. The number, I mean, it's unbelievable. Every time you think, I can't get any worse than this. It's like when Michael Jackson, near the end of Michael Jackson's life, every 6 months you'd see him, you'd think, boy, it can't get any weirder than that. And somehow 6 months later he would. With the Jets, you think there's no way they can get any worse than this. Somehow they do. If you put together a quarterback of the guys who have faced the Jets this year, he'd be the MVP. He would have completed 65% of his passes, thrown for 3,600 yards, 32 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. The Jets don't have a single interception on the entire season. And the Patriots, they were missing their left tackle, the guard, a couple of the receivers. And the Jets, it was like they didn't even know they were playing football. It almost was like they weren't football players. This has been a complete organizational failure. This is not rebuilding. So if you want to zoom out and ask, well, haven't other coaches survived bad starts? And the Athletic kind of ran this down. In the last 10 years, 6 first-time head coaches started 0-6 or worse. I would think that none of them have been as bad as Aaron Glenn has been. Glenn started 0-7, and he's already lost by 20 or more 5 times. Hugh Jackson, who was probably the worst head coach in the history of football, started 0-14. Now, I think the Browns were tanking at that point, but he was fired midway through his 3rd season. So he's terrible. Kyle Shanahan, 2017, they started 0-9, the Niners, but they finished 6-10. They won 5 straight games to end the season. So you could see, hey, there's some progress here. Now, they did lose a lot of games by 20 or more. I think it was 3 times, but he's still coaching in San Francisco because he's one of the best coaches in football. Brian Flores, he started 0-7. Again, another team that seemed like they were tanking early on, but they won 3 of their last 5 games, I think it was. And they got more competitive as time has gone on. Now, Flores did eventually get fired, but year 1 was bad, but he turned it around from that point. And you even saw things in year 1. Now, Zach Taylor with the Bengals, he started 0-11. They finished 2-14. But as bad as that year was, they drafted Joe Burrow that offseason. So that's kind of why he was able to survive. Now, the one that will get pointed out all the time because of the Detroit ties is Dan Campbell. The Lions started 0-10-1. They finished 3-13. So again, saw something as the season went along. It wasn't getting progressively worse all the time. And the things that separates the Lions and the Bengals and the Jets, Lions had Jared Goff. The Bengals got Joe Burrow. Compare that to where the Jets are at right now. Now, I've been saying for a while, I don't care where the Jets finish. They got to go get a quarterback. And mainly because the quarterback, their first quarterback, they paid $30 million for 9 games of Justin Fields, who was unplayable. And he was the worst version of Justin Fields at any point of his NFL career. So maybe it was a lottery ticket. It was an instant failure. The plan failed from jump. It failed instantly. So when you look beyond, the Jets are going to win 3 games. They're going to be 3-14. When you look beyond the first-year head coaches, the Jets finish with 3 wins. The history is not very promising, especially since, again, Buffalo is probably going to blow them out 50-0. From 2015 to 2024, 22 teams won 3 or fewer games. 13 of those coaches were fired either during that season or immediately after that season. So that's more than half of the guys got fired after that first season. 6 more were fired during or after the following season. So it tells you history is not on Aaron Glenn's side. And again, I would think that a lot of those other guys, there's far more evidence that they were figuring it out than Aaron Glenn. Nothing that he has done this year, even with the most modest expectations, would convince you, hey, you know what? This guy's growing into the job. I've seen things I've liked. I haven't seen anything that I've liked from Aaron Glenn. And why this is important, it's not just about what happened this year. And people will say, well, the Jets are tanking. Well, maybe they're tanking now. The Brady Cook games, yeah, they're tanking now. But that was not the plan going into it. And don't tell me that the Jets didn't have any pieces. I mean, they've been drafting in the top 5 for a decade. There's pieces on the team, and Aaron Glenn just has not gotten any production at all from them. And Aaron Glenn told you coming into the year, this was going to be a team you could be proud of, competitive and disciplined and physical. When does that show up? Does that show up week 17? So some point they decided to flip the script. And when it flipped, it didn't just go south. It went through the floor. And it's been so humiliating. Like, that's the thing to me. Does it always have to be so embarrassing? Like, if you're a Jet fan, doesn't it just feel like, why does it always have to be so embarrassing? Can't we just lose games like a normal team? It's always so bad. It's always so laughingstock, so punchline. It's historic ineptitude. And every week they look unprepared. They look uninterested. And like this was supposed to be, we're going to turn this around. Nothing that has happened this year, not one single thing should make you feel good about Aaron Glenn as the head coach. Now, maybe, sports are not scripted, so who knows? Maybe down the road, things will turn around. But it better turn around in a hurry. Like the numbers tell you, next year he walks into the season on the hot seat. There's no more, you got to see progress right away. And the Jets right now are picking third in the draft. They have to get a quarterback with that pick. No ifs, ands, or buts. That is the decision that is going to define this organization yet again. And ask yourself honestly, do you have any confidence that Aaron Glenn is the guy who can select that guy and then develop that guy? Have you seen him develop anybody on this roster that would make you feel confident about the quarterback that he is going to be able to develop? Because if you get that wrong, you're right back to square one. And not just square one, then you're going to be firing him after. I mean, it's just a circle. Oh my God, it's so bad. It just wastes the most important assets that this franchise, like the one reason why Jet fans are a little excited is because they have all these assets. Whatever that first pick is in the draft, it's essential that the Jets draft their quarterback. And the history of the Jets, the history of coaches in this league, the history of quarterbacks with the Jets, this would be maybe the greatest upset in the history of sports. If Aaron Glenn turns out to be a great head coach and drafts and develops a quarterback moving forward, boy, Jet fans are going to have the last laugh. The chances of that actually happening, in my eyes, are astronomical. So the Jets, if they were smart, they would look at the landscape and say, you know what? We tried it. This ain't it. And we're going to start over. It's like drafting a quarterback. If you don't hit on a guy, take another shot. Don't just keep sticking with a guy just because you took him. Take another guy. Keep flipping over cards until you find the winner. And right now, it's pretty clear. Aaron Glenn is not one of those winners that has been flipped over. So I would say the Jets have a decision to make. You can fire Aaron Glenn now and take the hit, or you can fire him next year, because clearly that's what's going to happen. This is a disaster from jump, but the best thing you can do is get off the train when it's running off the tracks. And the fact that the Jets almost certainly won't fire Aaron Glenn shows you that firing Aaron Glenn probably is the right call.
Remember college? Well, now, college is over, and here comes your student loan debt. Is your private student loan debt keeping you up at night? You really need to talk to YRefi. YRefi refinances distressed or defaulted private student loans that others won't touch. They can save you thousands of dollars and get you a custom payment that you can afford. And they don't care what your credit score is. Don't let private student loan debt ruin your life. Call YRefi today.
All right, let's look ahead to Week 18 and the featured matchup in the NFL between the Steelers and the Ravens to decide who wins the AFC North. But there is so much more riding on this game potentially than just simply who's going to the playoffs and who's going home. You have the Steelers angle. Could Mike Tomlin be out of a job if they end up missing the playoffs this year? That's going to be fascinating to watch. And on the Ravens side of things, it seems like there's some friction building between the organization and their quarterback, Lamar Jackson. And the Ravens are one of the most stable organizations in the NFL, and a large part of that has been the play of Lamar Jackson, a two-time NFL MVP. But this has kind of come up as a result of an article written by Mike Preston of the Baltimore Sun. I think it was just about a week ago or so. And he floated the idea that no matter how this season ends, that perhaps the Ravens should explore the idea of trading Lamar Jackson. And this was not simply a football hot take where it was about, he doesn't really lead you anywhere come the postseason. This was about things coming out from the organization, things the organization did not like about the way the quarterback handles himself, that he falls asleep in meetings and he doesn't take care of his body the right way, and he's up late playing video games, and they've changed the schedule to accommodate him and all these type of things. And look, maybe some of this is true, maybe it's not true, I don't know. But what it does lead you to, these are the kind of stories that usually come out after a quarterback or after a star player has left the organization. They don't generally come out while the guy is still there. And this is the face of the franchise, the reason why your window of opportunity is open. And it's also funny where the line is drawn with the Ravens. I mean, this is the same organization that had Justin Tucker a couple of years ago with all the things that he was going. And look, If he had simply just been up late playing video games, that would have probably been a whole lot better than some of the things that he was doing. But what makes this a little bit stranger is also who this is coming from. This is not Colin Cowherd having this. This is not some national talk show host throwing this out. This is a guy who is covering the team, and it's clear that he is feeding this information from somebody who is giving him this information from within the organization and is basically sending a message to the quarterback. And it really kind of feeds into a narrative with the organization that Lamar, for their point of view, doesn't talk to anybody. He doesn't have an agent, and nobody really knows what he wants and how to get through to him. Now, there's been some speculation that he wants out and he wants to go to the Dolphins. That's like wishing for the tooth fairy. I mean, there's no realistic way that can happen. The Dolphins, as we talked about in the previous episode, they're in quarterback jail. They have like $99 million in dead money in Tua Tagovailoa's contract. So their window of opportunity has been wielded shut as a result of that. And they're pretty much stuck until 2028. And 2028 is interesting because Lamar's cap number in 2027 is like $75 million. So a franchise tag would jump that to like almost $90 million, which means unless the Ravens want to negotiate another contract, that doesn't seem realistic. And they've got basically 2 years before he can walk into free agency. So in theory, trading him, maybe because the injuries have popped up here and maybe if there's some friction within the organization. But the part of that doesn't really make a lot of sense, and this is the reality check, we've already kind of seen this play out before. It was, 3 years ago? Lamar was available to any team that wanted him. I think he had one MVP at that point. I don't think he had won the second one as of yet. And all teams would have to have given up was 2 first-round picks, and nobody took that. Nobody was willing to go there. Nobody offered him a contract that he would bring back to the Ravens, and maybe it was collusion, but maybe it was just teams not wanting to get in bed with Lamar Jackson, as great as he is as a player. So fast forward to, what would it be, 2027, 2028, or even this offseason. Lamar is going to be 3 years older than he was back then. So let's say they go about trading him this offseason. It'll be a lot easier for teams to talk themselves out of it this time around because he has been hurt. His numbers in terms of contract are exploding, and it's very, very difficult to fill out the rest of your roster if you're paying your quarterback $75 million. So trading Lamar Jackson might sound good, but it's next to impossible, which is why if there is a parting of the ways, and I don't know where this information came from in the article, if it was from ownership, if it was from coaches, but it seems more likely that if there's going to be a change, John Harbaugh is now his 18th season. They won the Super Bowl in 2012, and since then they've won 4 playoff games in total. So, and look, that's not nothing, but it's not the untouchable resume that people treat it as it is. So maybe nothing changes. Maybe they run this back. Who knows? Maybe the Ravens win on Sunday against the Steelers, and they get into the playoffs, and they go on a run, and Lamar finally proves all his doubters wrong and comes back and is healthy. That might be a little far-fetched, but this is a very stable organization that doesn't look so stable anymore. And make no mistake, there's a lot riding on this season for the organization, for the coach, for the quarterback, and for Baltimore. And this game on Sunday is going to be fascinating to watch because it could go any which way. We don't know if Lamar is even going to play. And if he does play, how effective will he be? But there's a lot of potential offshoots of this story, and it can go any which way right now. And that, to me, is absolutely fascinating for an organization that is just kind of counted in every year as a stable organization that goes to the playoffs every single year, has a coach for 2 decades, has a quarterback who's a 2-time MVP, and you have to start to question, is the window of opportunity for the Ravens starting to close, or is it already closed already? And we'll find out certainly on Sunday one way or another. All right, that is going to do it for another episode of Gordon Damer on Sports. If you've not done so already, please do me a favor, hit that subscribe button in whatever corner it is, and like the episode, share the episode, hit a couple of keys, whatever you can do. It definitely helps on the algorithm, and we will see you later this week with a fresh episode of Gordon Damer on Sports.